Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I am super excited as I have another fantastic guest for you. So from a corporate finance executive to wellness advocate and a journey of discovery, for 15 years she did what she thought people were supposed to do, get a career and work really hard until you retire. One day she drove through a red light and almost hit a pedestrian whilst being stressed out and on autopilot. So began a back to me journey to find wellness, health, peace of mind, and everything life should be. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Heather Stewart. How are you, Heather?
I'm great. Thank you. So great to have this conversation with you today.
We've already in some respects. But we could have actually published like half of what, not half, what we've just covered over the last, I don't know, 20 odd minutes, maybe 30 minutes. So
yes,
it's almost this
all the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. What we're going to talk about now, we've covered it all. This is like
we could just continue on. I felt like it was not finished. There was just like this conversation, which so many good ideas were being exchanged. It's like, yes. And we were on the same page.
Yeah, sure.
Really.
I should have definitely taken notes. But really excited to have a conversation with you today. We're going to cover, to me, a very intriguing subject. And I got this from your website. I've obviously researched you and stuff, and we're put links and stuff to your website and so forth after. But we want to cover, because I think it's a very important subject to cover, about how we can find our spark in life. Because I think, and I've done no research on this, so I don't know that this is fact, but I think there's probably a healthy majority of us that may have given up on finding our spark, or may have just settled for life as it is.
Right.
But I think there's definitely, hopefully, a nice minority of people that are living, I guess, a purpose-driven life where spark is all there and they're doing all the wonderful things that they want to do and they're on that right path. But I think what we want to do is definitely connect with and reach people that may not be there yet, and really give them hopefully the tools and the questions and the techniques they can all use to find their spark. So I read a little bit of your bio even.
Yes.
And clearly you found your spark, but there was a journey for you to get there. So maybe we can go back in time a little bit to maybe the corporate days and what was going on there. And I guess you got to a point where you realized maybe this isn't my destined life that I should be living.
Well, it's so interesting how we end up where we end up in life. And we were talking about that a little bit before, how how you ended up in publishing and tech and things moved around. And I think that the old way of doing things, like my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation, was you picked your job and you did that forever. And we still have that mindset a little bit of, you decide when you finish school what you're going to do and you just go and do it. And when people decide that that's not the right thing, there's so much resistance to it. So at the end of, in my final year of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still hadn't fully developed into who I was going to be as a human being, or some people know right away in high school what they want and they go and do it. But I was still in the experimental phase. And I think even now I'm still in the experimental phase. And I didn't know what to do, but I had to make a decision of going to university. So someone I had much influence, external influence, that said, oh, you're very good at this. Go and become an accountant. It makes a lot of money. So I did. And and yes, I was good at it, and I did make a lot of money at it. And I, but I was not happy because, and you could tell that I wasn't settled because every 2 years I had to change jobs. I was moving around a lot. And the final company that I worked for, I was actually there for 7 years. And I think I was only there for 7 years because every 2 years they moved me or promoted me. And one day I was just sitting there, and funny enough, I had started practicing yoga for stress. Um, and it was working a little bit, but I was on my way to yoga when I almost ran over that pedestrian when I drove over through the red light. So it wasn't enough. Doing yoga wasn't enough. But I realized that I something in me said, I don't have to stay here if I don't want to. We were talking about that earlier, that people have this I can't,
Mm.
that closes
Yeah.
all of the doors. So when I decided I didn't want to be this accountant anymore and be in corporate finance, I got a lot of pushback from my circle. One of my friends took me out to lunch. He was going to take me to the mental health facility because he thought that I had lost my mind. He really had planned to take me to be committed because I was quitting my job. And I just looked him in the eye. I said, "It's okay to change jobs. Don't be scared." Like, I think everybody was afraid that had gone completely mad because I was leaving my job and because I had no plan
Mm.
when I left. I mean, I had started teaching yoga, like I had progressed now to I was started teaching yoga. So I knew I felt that pull into something different than corporate. But I think people feel like, well, I've made this to my bed, I have to lie in it.
Yeah.
I can't change it. I made this decision, it's carved in stone, and I'm not allowed to change it. And that throws people a lot when layoffs happen too,
Mm.
right? So you've been laid off, but this is what I'm supposed to do forever. I don't know what to do now because they haven't put a lot of thought into what they actually want. Being able to step away from the I have to's and the I can'ts to allow yourself that space to be curious. I think the biggest thing in life right now is be curious
Mm.
about who you are and what you do want. And we're talking about, there are people in life who have made that decision and live that life. And pardon me, you can tell those people because I think we are attracted to those people energetically, not like in a romantic kind of way. But I think that when you see someone who you can tell there's something different about them, why are they happy? Why do they not feel that density of the rest of us
Mm.
who are just slogging along? And we were talking a little bit about energy and vibration earlier, but I think that vibration of I'm aligned with what I want. I have this spark in me because I'm excited to be doing what I'm doing, whatever it is. And we don't need to rank these things on monetary, it's ranked on alignment with your purpose. It's what I like to call it. And that can be being the best mom in the world and raising the most amazing children, or it can be, climbing mountains. They're all valuable. But I think we're attracted to the energy of those people and we don't always stop to wonder why. And
Yeah.
I think it's because they are in their flow.
Mm.
And because we're not, we're like pulled towards that to learn something from them.
Yeah. No, I love that analogy, and I think it raises so many interesting questions. I think one you've alluded to is that can't. It's
Yeah.
that can't conundrum that we always put in front of any decision or any intuition that we have that we would like to do something different. If we've been doing something for a long period of time, we assume that even if it doesn't feel right anymore, we assume that we have to go on. Not everybody does. I definitely know people that will make a hard stop and actually they will change when it doesn't feel right. in my own personal experience, and I'm not saying that I'm one of those actually, I'd like to move into that space. Maybe, sorry, yeah, I'd like to move into that space, but I think for the majority of us, we take too long to think about the can't, and that invariably wins. And also, I think sometimes we get caught up a lot of time in terms of the box that other people have put us in, the identity that they have for us, and that can weigh heavy on our decision making.
It's actually hugely impactful on your decision making. I mean, we are a tribal species, right? Our survival is based on, or in the past was based on acceptance by our community, because that's how we were going to be able to have enough to eat and, be protected. And it's not true anymore, but we still have a bit of that hard wiring in us. So imagine I had decided to leave corporate finance, and I was actually getting divorced at the same time. And I had to stand in front of all of these people and change. There's an unwritten agreement that you have with your community that you are this way and they are this way, and this is how you interact. And when you change it, that causes disruption for them. So do they have to change? Do they have to examine how they're living? What if they don't want to change? They want to stay the same. They want the agreement to stay the same. So you changing, even if it's the best thing for you, can be a hard step to take and a hard thing to stay on that path after you get these pushbacks from, it's not always family, it's community, it's friends, it's having to be different in your space even, right? So I think I benefit from a stubborn streak, maybe, that I inherited from my grandfather. My mother tells me that if someone tells me that I have to be a certain way, my standard response is, "Oh yeah? No, I
Yeah.
don't." So it has served me well, but it is also, there have been times it hasn't worked out, but it has served me well in that sense that I felt like it was okay for me to step out of that community and friends, and then I was okay.
Okay.
I was going to find my way without having to be who they needed me to be.
Yeah. Okay. So in your situation, you in corporate, stuff was going on. You knew you were stressed. You started getting into yoga and other things, and then you decided that I'm going to make the change now. I'm just curious about that bit, that
Yeah.
watershed moment. What was going on that enabled you at that moment to think now is the time, and then you were able to shift all that.
Right. Yeah. I had some interesting things happen. So, uh, like when I ran the red light and I realized that I hadn't seen that the light was red and that I was angry with the pedestrian for being in the sidewalk, that was a big kick in the pants. That was what? Because I'm someone, I fully admit I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I like to be a certain way, even though I know there's no such thing as perfection. But for me to have run a red light was horrendous for me that I had made that error. And so I had to kind of come to terms with, like, how did that happen that I didn't even see it? And then along the same timeline, I was in my office and I was listening to the radio. I was listening to the CBC, which is the Canadian version of the BBC. And um, the gentleman who owned the majority of the company that I worked for was, they reported that he was the richest man in Canada. And that's, I mean, good for him. But at the time, I was trying to balance a budget, and it was a budget in the billions of dollars.
Wow.
And yes, and they wanted another couple of $1 million out of the budget. So I'm like moving numbers around and I'm trying to figure out, I'm calling vice presidents going, can you just give me a little more? And they're pushing back. And when I heard this on the radio, something in my head went, can I swear on this podcast? Fuck him. He doesn't
Mm.
need another
Yeah.
$1 million.
Yeah.
And those two combined, I suddenly went, I am in the wrong place. This isn't right. If I I can't engage with this drive to find these dollars in these budgets and force things to happen and spend my life. And at the same time, I was in this space where I was coming to the end of a project that I was working on. And the next step was going to be a promotion, another promotion. And I was having a conversation with someone about these things that had happened. And I said, and I don't want more money and more responsibility in exchange for more of my life. So I'd had this conversation with her and I just said, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. So because the project was winding down and I knew it was going to be a transition point, I said, that's perfect. So I went to my boss and I said, I'm leaving at the end of this. And he was funny. He said, I kind of felt like you weren't totally engaged anymore. Like part of me had already checked out. And I said, yeah, I'm just leaving. And he asked me where I was going. And I said, I don't know. I actually ended up,
Is that,
actually, yeah,
is
I
that
actually
when
ended
they
up,
wanted to take you to see the shrink?
yeah, no, it was a different person who wanted to take me to see the shrink
Where's she going?
because
I don't know where she's going.
I decided to go to India for 3 months. I just left. I just removed myself from all of the chaos of the city and the situation and everything going on. And I just went. I mean, not that India is not chaotic to travel in, but it's different. And it's a different energy and it's a different way of thinking about the world. And I just wanted to go and travel and look around, really. I mean, ended up sitting for a week in the residence of the Dalai Lama, listening to him talk just randomly because it wasn't in his official calendar. But a monk told me he was going to be there. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to India. I'm going to go over and listen to the Dalai Lama for a while. Like, it was amazing.
When you made that decision, how did you feel? So did you feel like a weight had been lifted?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Anytime that I've struggled with a decision and I've recognized that I'm struggling, like I have this internal, when you make the decision, it's just like, okay, the struggle is over. You've made the decision and you can feel like in general, okay, people don't always make the right decision. But if you've made the right decision, you just feel like you can exhale, right? You just
Yeah.
feel all that come down. Like ever since then, I mean, not every moment of every day, but I've been on a fabulous trajectory of fun and happy and joyful and
Yeah. Because I've got two questions in my head. I'm thinking which one shall I ask? Okay.
both. Why
So
choose?
okay. I'm gonna go with I'm the counterintuitive. I'm gonna go with this one that's in my head at the moment. So I don't want to forget it. So you know Scott Galloway, do you?
I know the name.
Okay, so I think what's his company? Is it Section 4, something like that? Anyway, he's a wonderful podcaster. He's an academic that does lots of stuff on, I guess, society and people, and how the opportunities that we have and the challenges that we're facing, and he will give context around those things. I'm not really giving a great summary, but I will put a link to Scott
Yeah.
Galloway on the show notes. The reason I reference him is because I'm sure I listened to something recently where he talks about purpose, and because there's a lot in, well, they say there's a lot. We do look at the narrative that we should live life and we should follow our purpose, and there's a
Yeah.
lot in that, and there's a lot of good stuff around that. But he kind of countered on that, and I don't want to misquote him. I might, if he ever listens to this, he might think, Paul, you haven't got that quite right. But he spoke about that, and I think from recollection, he talks about the idea that sometimes when we follow our purpose and we go after that, that doesn't always take us to where we want to go, just in terms of money, in terms of all these things. So I guess what he was doing was pushing back a little bit by saying, okay, it's good to think about that, but it may not always take you where you need to go in terms of having the money and all these types of things. And maybe you need to think about, what are you good at? What do you do well? Maybe you should put more energy into that. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that analogy.
I have a couple thoughts that have come into my head, and I don't disagree with him at all.
Okay.
And I think that in some ways, the follow your passion trend has become trendy.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
become everybody just smile and be happy, just follow your bliss, this whole bliss thing. And I don't think I agree with the thinking behind that, because I think there is more than just following your bliss behind following your purpose or your passion. Because I'm going to be fully honest, like yes, I follow my passion and I'm not joyful and happy every single day. I have a general happiness and trust in that I'm going the right way. And yes, it's not always going to pay the bills because we become a society focused on money and having lots of it to do the things they show you in TV
Yeah.
commercials, right? So, oh, live this fabulous life, live this fabulous life. And the fabulous life, marketing wise, is always expansive and fabulous clothes and traveling and having all the things you want. Or maybe that's not what the fabulous life is. And maybe that's not what your passion is meant to bring you. But you're evaluating it as, again, monetarily. That your passion, if it doesn't bring you a monetary, then that's the wrong thing, which I don't think is correct. But at the same time, I push against the trendiness of it all. Yes, you want enough money to live your purposeful life. So sometimes your passion isn't going to be that thing. Like sometimes you have to go be a barista and, get money to pay the rent. But I also had another thought. Have you heard of Ikigai? I don't know if I'm saying it
I
right.
don't
It's
think so.
Japanese.
I don't think
It's
so.
this Japanese way of living. So
Yeah, I think I 50-50. I think I might have heard of it.
it's like got four components to it, and let's see if I can remember them. So there's what you're good at. So, this is what you're good at. There's what you enjoy. There is what is going to serve society. Now, what's the other one? And you're trying to find the intersection of the four of them. So by getting the intersection of the four of them, you have enough money, you love it, you're great at it, the world needs it, and you get paid for it. That's
Yeah.
the other piece of
Okay.
it. You love it, you're good at it, the world needs it, and you can get paid for it. And when you can get all those four together, that is your sweet spot
Mm.
of, I think it's pronounced Ikagi.
Yeah.
And because some people they're good at it and they're like, I was good at it and I got paid for it and the world needed it, but I didn't like it. So I was too heavy on one side. Or, you get the starving artist complex, although let's talk about the giant balloon sculpture and how many millions of dollars that got sold for. Not all artists are starving.
Yeah.
But a lot of artists think that they're good at it, but they can't get paid for it. It's like, yes, you can get paid for it. It's just in your head. So finding the intersection of those four can help people find that spot that his name, what, Scott Galloway. Like, if you can't get paid for it, can you find an aspect of that thing you love that you can get paid for? Because
Yeah.
some people also get the can't, it has to be this way blinders
Yeah.
of this is the only way I can live this passion. But there's a million ways to live a passion, right? It doesn't have to fit into your limited imagination way of dreaming it up, because the universe has bigger plans. If you let the universe, if you pay attention to I'm going to go a bit woo. If you pay attention to the little tidbits the universe sends you, it's telling you how to do it. And it can think up way more ideas than you can on how to do
Yeah.
it.
I definitely think it's a different way of thinking. I think it's us always being curious, always asking questions. And I guess there's a lot, and I guess it's having belief in ourselves and maybe following, trust in our intuition. And I guess it's having that ability to repel naysayers and people that,
Well, sometimes it's just the voice in your head that's the
yeah,
problem,
yeah,
right? So I I have someone that I'm coaching who went to school to be an animator, wants to be an animator, loves doing it, but she doesn't believe that she can do it.
Mm.
And I I often wonder, like, where did that voice originate? Because you weren't born with that voice
Mm.
telling you can't do things. So where did that voice come from? Did it come from an experience that you had? Did it come from something that you saw? Did it come from something that happened in school? And it could have been something innocent that you interpreted in a way that you can't do that, right? So um, I like to have those conversations of who's really saying that,
Mm.
because you wouldn't say that to yourself if you were kind to yourself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I guess over an extended period of time, somebody like that, and I'm sure most people that are listening to this episode can probably think about their own situation, but we have that compound effect where we've said this to ourselves, either outwardly or inwardly. We have those thoughts and beliefs that are consistent. And then it's definitely it's good when they work with somebody like you that can bring it to their attention. Then you can then you've got the awareness,
Hmm.
and then you can work on that to try and reframe that. Well, maybe not reframe is not the right word, but certainly explore where this has come from and how can we fix this.
Sometimes just knowing where it originated from helps
Yeah.
you, right? Just like, oh, right, that person said that, and this is what I installed into my, background software without realizing it. So awareness is always the first place you
Mm.
need to make a change. I always talk about, you have to be aware that it's happening. Then you have to decide you want something different. Then you actually have to do something. You know, if you decide you want something different and don't do anything, well, nothing's going to change.
So that's an interesting question. So, because you've done this, because you decided you wanted to do something different and you did
Mhm.
it, maybe you can talk us through that process because that may lead to a great answer that other people that are listening can maybe think if they're in a scenario now,
Right,
maybe they can take some cues from your journey.
right. So, I mean, often for anyone, they know when they're not happy, but they don't also always know why,
Mm.
right? So if you can give yourself that grace of a little bit of like examining, and I think about this as when you're examining and exploring, curiosity over expectation. So expectation will kill any revelations, because if you're like the passion thing, if you expect that it has to be a certain way, um, that's you're not it's going to close you to the other
Yeah,
ideas. So
yeah.
being curious of, oh, this upsets me all the time, or oh, I'm not happy in my job. Why am I not happy? What is it about the job that I'm not happy about? And you were commenting, I think it was before, that you got along well with your colleagues, but it wasn't particularly your job that you loved.
Mm.
So making that distinction, like changing jobs doesn't mean you have to leave colleagues behind. So if it's the work that you're not enjoying, diving down, like, what is it about the work? Is there parts of it you do like? Is there parts of it you can take with you? So being aware that that you're not happy about something, being curious so that you can see what the pieces are that you want to keep and what the pieces are that you want to change. Um, so you don't throw it all away. That was, I mean, fully confess that was what I did. I chucked it all. but but I don't recommend it for everyone. I can surf through the disruption, but not everyone can. So starting to ask yourself the questions of, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting. I wonder why I do that, or I wonder why this is this way, or I wonder what it is about that. And then it's not that flash of brilliance. It's not a TV show. It's not sorted in, 30 minutes. But give yourself some space and some breathing space to think about it. And if it helps you, you can meditate, or you can journal on it, or talk to someone who's not got a vested interest in you being the way you are. Because family, friends, like we said, have a certain agreement with the way you are. So that'll help you bring to that point where you recognize the thing that you want to change. And then deciding to change it doesn't mean you have to decide what you're changing to. You can just decide you want something different. And some people like the stability of I'm changing from this to this. And some people are okay with just saying this is going to be different. But you do have to make a decision to have something be different. And once you make the decision, you have to actually implement. So if I decided that I didn't like my job, or I didn't like where I was working, but I liked pieces of what I was doing, I might go have a conversation with my boss and say, look, these are pieces of my job that I really don't like and are pulling the life out of me. But I want some help or some feedback, or even like an HR department or a career counselor. These are the parts that I like. How can I like take these pieces that are really exciting for me and expand them? So that's like a job example, or a relationship example. You don't have to necessarily get divorced. Lots of people find ways to navigate proper communication and respect in a relationship so that they find the love that they had again. So if you find in a relationship that you aren't getting what you need from your relationship, having that honest communication and not saying, you never do this for me, but saying, I feel this and I feel like I need some of this, and having that conversation with the person on what they need from the relationship. I mean, you entered into a relationship for a reason. Can you still get both what you need in that relationship? And then taking steps to make it happen, but I find a lot of it has to be honest and open communication.
Is it, I guess, for people when we're looking to find a spark, and I think deep down most of us can probably recognize when I was using an analogy on this podcast about things. It's like an ill-fitting suit. Sometimes it doesn't feel quite right, and we need to, I guess, do something different. But I guess there can be the challenge of what is that action? What do I need to do?
Right.
You've given some examples of what.
Well, and it's interesting, spark. So if you remember being little kids don't question where their spark is, right? They're out and they're exploring and doing the things. And I was actually listening to, do you know who Lee Holden is?
Who's sorry?
Lee Holden.
No, no.
He's a Qigong teacher. So he was talking about balancing yin and yang, just the two energies. And he said, little kids know how to do this. They play, 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 play. When they're tired, they sleep. They haven't got their energies muddled together. So finding your spark is in there, and it's just gotten muddled up with all the other I have to, should, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, right? I have a podcast episode called Don't Should All Over Yourself. So we've ended up in this, I should be a certain way to operate. And if you can let that go, the spark is not, sometimes I worry that people think the spark has to be something Hollywood. Do you know what I mean? It's like it has to be this shiny angels singing, epic music and your cape fluttering in the background or something. But spark is often, it's just, flow is a great description of it, even though it gets used a lot. But flow is like you're in it. You can feel that your mind is different, that you lose time. Like you're just in there and you're doing it. And I mean, we do live in the practical 3D world of relationships and money, but the steps that you take are, I think the first step that people have to take is recognizing when their energy shifts. So to find your spark, because your logical brain, here's what happens. Your logical brain tries to struggle with this it goes, okay, I need a step 1, step 2, step 3. But your logical brain's not inventive at all. Your logical brain only
Yeah.
knows how to follow rules. You need your creative brain. So when you're first trying to decide what that initial step is, instead of using your logical brain, use the I wonder. I wonder what would happen if I tried this, or I wonder what the best way would be to move forward. And don't think about it. Just put that wonder in your head. And sometimes I'll use free writing. I'll write, I wonder. And it can often start as like, I am free writing, this is stupid. But eventually I stop thinking and I just let the creativity write onto the page. But if you go with I wonder, that allows your creative brain, and your brain doesn't like unanswered questions. So brains like answers. They don't like to leave things hanging. They don't like open loops. So when you say I wonder and then you leave it, your creative brain will start to make cross connections and think about things and, you know, build Legos and, you know, whatever your creative brain is doing. And it can come up with ideas. And then when you come up with an idea, you can say, oh, I wonder what would happen if I did this, and play with 5 minutes a day, daydreaming without any expectation of an outcome. Daydreaming is highly underrated. I mean, J.K. Rowling came up with her idea for, I think it was J.K. Rowling, sitting on a train, on a tube, like staring out the window, right? Because she wasn't thinking about anything.
Yeah. I think she was on a train in Edinburgh or something like that, in Scotland somewhere.
Yeah, like just staring at the window.
Yeah. So just with that, I love that analogy. I hadn't thought about that. Very simple, but to my mind, it feels very effective. And so for people that are thinking the same as me, I definitely could spare. Oh, not spare. I definitely would like to do this. So when they do that and you find things, talking about this spark thing, are there certain cues where you might think actually this one is worth exploring because of a feeling, energy, vibration that we get?
So your intuition, everybody's intuition talks to them in a different way. I don't know how yours speaks to you. Mine is I feel a forward energy push. Like, that's brilliant, Heather. And I almost feel like the energy is pulling me forward physically. Some people just can feel it in their gut. It's like, yes. And there's lots of people who have that sensory awareness it's in their like sacral area. If you know that you're that person who can hear that, just that yes, that feel that yes, no, trust it because it's right. And by showing that you trust it and following through, that sensation gets stronger. Some people can hear almost like a yes, no. I don't know how your intuition comes to you. I mean, we've relegated intuition to this weird thing that only psychics do, but everybody has an inner knowing. Because we operate from our brain, we forget that there are neurons in our heart, there are neurons in our gut. We think that our brain runs the show, but your body is fully involved in all of your decisions. So if you can tune into where your energy is, and it takes a little bit of practice. I have a friend who coaches people on how to understand their intuition, which I think is brilliant. When you can tune into that, then the answers become easy. Like, I didn't know that I was following my intuition all those years ago because I was very accountant. I was very left brain, logical, even though I had this kind of creative side. But now when I make decisions, because I've learned to listen to it, like it took me it's like making friends with yourself, trusting yourself that you know your direction. Now it speaks to me louder because I've learned how to hear it and learned how to trust it and learned how to ask it the right questions. You know, there's no bad questions, but there's better questions that you can ask.
Yeah. So intuition, spark, are they like brother and sister? Are they connected?
I feel like I feel like they are, because I feel like your intuition knows the journey of the trajectory, your best trajectory, and knows that if you were on that path, that you would be lit up like, a Roman candle,
Yeah.
something like a spotlight. And that's that attraction that we see, like those people who are on it, we can see them like a spotlight across the room. And I feel like your intuition knows deep down, and you can say it's your soul, you can say it's your higher self. Some part of you knows deep down what your path is, and it's trying to tap you on the shoulder and tell you in its way, but we aren't taught to listen to it. We're taught that that's like crazy talk, or no, that's not the right thing. This is what you should do. So it gets relegated further and further back. But if you can bring it back into the front, into the driver's seat with you, it knows the road to your spark.
And should we let intuition and spark trump fear and failure? Because
Hell yes.
okay,
Right.
okay.
Well,
That was a great answer. Great answer.
like fear is, just get rid of fear entirely, because unless you're being chased by a tiger, like fear's the purpose of fear these days, like fear is to protect you from something, right? But fear of failing, you shouldn't be protected from failure, because your brain physically can't learn a lesson unless you fail, right? So if you aren't failing, you're not learning. So failure is an amazing gift for you. It's an amazing gift because when something doesn't work, you think, okay, that didn't work. Okay, well, what if I tweak this and do this? And what if I do this? So if think of all the people who invented all the things in the world that they've invented, do you think they just like, boom, just dreamed it up and off it went? Like, we wouldn't be doing anything we were doing if people gave up on failure.
And it's actually when something fails that's an obstacle that has been removed.
Yes,
It's
right?
we're one step closer to where we want to go when
Yeah.
the failure happens. If the failure doesn't happen, we might be marooned where we currently are.
And if you fear, like if you spend all your life being afraid, then you never get up and do anything, right? You never take that step forward to the thing that you want to do, that you feel called to do. I'm not saying jumping out of airplanes or anything, unless that's what you're called to do, but we fear being judged. Like, I think all this goes back to school. Like, high school is so traumatic for so many people. You fear being judged, you fear being kicked off the island, you fear losing this relationship, you fear losing that job, you fear losing all these things. But if you do lose them, what if that's the gift? I'm not saying you won't lose them, but what if that is a gift for you?
Yeah, and I don't think it's interesting that we live in a world today where we wrongly, I say wrongly or rightly, but I think it's more wrongly that we tend to be more preoccupied with what other people think. And I don't know who said this or wrote it, but invariably, when we think that people are thinking about us, they're actually not.
Yes, they're
But
not.
we spend so much time and energy
So
not doing something.
think about social media. So social media has escalated the fear of judgment, in my opinion, because everybody posts their fabulous lives, doing their fabulous things. And even so, if you think about it, even when you're looking at people's fabulous lives, you're not thinking about them, you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah,
You're thinking, oh, my life's not
yeah.
as good as their life. Oh, I suck. Right? So if you can stop doom scrolling for like 10 minutes and spend 10 minutes with yourself and ask yourself, I wonder what makes me happy. I wonder if I would actually want that life. I wonder if they're actually as happy as they are. Or, you know, right?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you look at social media, everyone's got a yacht, everyone's got a
right?
Is that what you do? You drive your Lamborghini all day and or you're sailing your yacht or you're just on a tarmac ready to jump into your helicopter.
Right?
There
Even
can't be a
TV.
global
So
crisis.
I'm the Friends generation. So Friends, the TV show, which was pre-social media, they never seemed to go to work. They just sat in a
I know,
coffee
I know,
shop all day.
I know, I know. I'm a big Seinfeld fan.
Right?
Jerry had a job because he was in stand-up, but the others, intermittently, they had jobs and stuff. But yeah, I get it. So let's talk about you've got a wonderful podcast. I listened to your episode,
Thank you.
one of your episodes today with the
Shemansky.
yeah, yes. And so back to me. So maybe
Mhm.
we can talk us a little bit about how
Yeah.
the name Back to Me came to being.
Oh, yes. So we were talking a little bit earlier. So I had a business podcast called Build a Better Business because I thought my thing, the first road that I went down was to help people in the wellness space understand how to run a business
Mm.
because they just thought bills would pay themselves. So, but I had a stroke in 2021 and I was healthy, I was stress-free, I was doing all the right things, I was following my own program, and I had a stroke. It was no health factors caused it. It was a dissection of my carotid artery, if anybody knows what that means. And because it was COVID, we're going to be talking about COVID forever, I feel like. There, I couldn't have visitors, and there was no beds in the ward that I needed to go to. So I spent 3 days in the emergency room, and it was Halloween, and so there's crazy people coming and going in the emergency room. Thankfully, I had a cot at this point, and I had a little cubicle. I was behind some curtains, and I kept the lights off. But I couldn't, because I had double vision, I couldn't do the thing that everybody tends to do and go to their phone to escape what was happening. I couldn't scroll. I couldn't do anything. All I could do was lay there. So I felt like I was blessed with a 3-day silent retreat from the universe. And as I was laying there, I was thinking about my business because I was also actually a massage therapist at the time. I spent 14 years as a massage therapist while I was teaching yoga and running my yoga studio. And was thinking about my clients, and I was thinking about what am I going to do? And that kind of, I wasn't afraid because it's strange to have a stroke. When you break an arm or something, you know what the rehab is. You're like, okay, I'm fine. But when it's a stroke, it's like this black box. It's this mysterious thing. And I wasn't sure what was going on, but I figured, well, I'm in the hospital. I talked to the neurologist. I seem to be in a pretty good, safe place. So I just let my mind wander I went wandering. And it came to me, the name of the podcast came to me, and the name of the podcast was Back to Me. I said, okay, why is this? And I realized because I was listening to these conversations in the hospital, nobody knew I was behind this curtain. And I was listening to people who were afraid and because they were not well, it's an emergency room. Something's happening to them. They've lost control of what's happening. Their loved ones aren't with them, or for some cases, they were with them because they were children or the elderly, and their whole world is disrupted, and they just felt like the world had fallen out from underneath them. And I said, I need to help people
Mm.
understand how to navigate the uncertainty of the world in a place where they can find their spark. They can be happy, but know that life is going to happen. It's like stuff's going to happen to you. So when it does happen to you, do you have pieces in place that can come in to support you? Because I talk about your physical health. I mean, we have a body we walk around in. I talk about emotional health because you have to feel good inside your skin emotionally. I talk about your financial health because it is a part of our world. I talk about your occupation because does your job support you? And if something happens, So I was a sole proprietor. If something takes me out of my job, then I'm not going to earn any money. So I talk about occupation and financial. And then I talk about your engagement, your spiritual wealth, your spiritual health, your spark, your are you on your path? They all, by the way, are an acronym that spell become. So the Back to Me podcast, I knew I was like, okay, I have to talk about all these parts. There's so much here. There's so much material. There's so much content. I want to give people resources, ways of thinking, ways of balancing their lives out, ways to tweak. Like your life might be for the most part great, but maybe you could tweak that one thing and make it even better. So that's that's how the name came. I feel like I'm blabbing on about the podcast, but it gets me very excited. And I love the people that I get to talk to because they've had their journeys as well. And when you can look at someone else's journey and go and take a learning away from it, then that's helped you maybe not make a mistake that you don't have to you don't have to learn that one. I'll use their learning.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think as well, because we're all on a journey, we're all on our individual journey, and sometimes in our private moments, we sometimes think that we're the only person on a journey.
Yeah.
And what's lovely about your podcast is you get to hear wonderful conversations, but you get to realize actually the journey is the journey. Everybody's on a journey. It isn't straight, and the journey is to be enjoyed because it's an adventure. It's the ups and the downs are part of it, and the downs are probably where we are going to experience our most profound growth, and the growth will be bigger. If there are no downs, there's no growth, and the actual rewards won't be as big. So,
and I always wonder why people are in such a hurry to get to the finish line.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a good question, actually. It's a good question. Yeah. I need to ask myself that question, Paul. I want to slow down, enjoy it. Okay. Maybe that's another conversation we need to have. Maybe
what's the rush? What's the rush?
That's another episode. But yeah, and I'll put a link to your website and everything on the website because obviously you coach and so forth.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We talk about how to find your spark. You've got a quiz on your website, so
I do.
People could take that, can they?
Yeah, and it's a quick quiz. And what it does is those areas of wellness, it just asks you questions about where you are right now. Because some people, like we were talking about, they don't know where to start. It gives you, it's a quick quiz to go, start here. So maybe it's like maybe it's your job isn't like when you go through the questions, you can kind of see where they're leading, but it's like, it'll tell you, start with your job. Because the fabulous thing about those parts is they're not isolated. So one of the talks I give on summits sometimes is called "There's no such thing as work-life balance," because you can't like take your life and your work apart. And even though I separate it into 6 parts to talk about how to balance your life, it's like they're all integrated. So if I am not happy in my work, then I'm going to bring that home, and I'm just going to make me physically and emotionally in my relationships. Oh, I forgot your community wellness as well. You need the C. But if you improve one piece, it will ripple into the other parts of your life. So, but knowing where to start. So starting with the thing that the quiz helps you notice where to start first, to start making some shifts and some changes. And it gives you some resources. You get a few emails from me that say, depending on which your answer was, of like, try this, listen to this, to help you kind of start to navigate. If I choose to start on this thing, I wonder what would happen. And I wonder what it is about that thing that I will change.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we'll put a link in the show notes so that's easy for everybody to access. So we're getting towards the end now. So I mentioned you do coaching. So for people that want to find out a bit more about that, what's the easiest way for people to contact you or maybe explore that with you?
Well, the website, heatherstewart.coach, it has a link to I give people 30 minutes, like let's just have a conversation. I call it a curiosity because I'm all about curiosity. And if people don't know what coaching is, because when we're in the coaching world, we feel like everybody knows what coaching is. But the curiosity call is you curious about what coaching is and how it can help you, and me curious about if I can help you. Because if I can't, I'm going to tell you. If I think that, because I have a network of lots of resources, it's like, if I think something else will help you more, I am going to let you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll get the links. We'll put those in the show notes. And so, final question is the recurring question. So, if you could invite three inspirational people for dinner, alive or past, who would you invite?
Well, what's funny is they're all past. And I thought about this, and you might be able to see a pattern here. So I'd invite Aristotle, and I would invite Da Vinci, and I would invite Shakespeare.
That's like, wow. I wonder what they would.
I know, wouldn't it be
Lovely.
amazing? Because because the
Wow.
conversation, and it would be just so fascinating to be in that conversation with those minds and to see how they think and to be able to ask them some questions like why, like Da Vinci, he's got notes upon notes upon notes of brilliance, but he didn't do any of it. So why were you just a thinker and you wanted other people to do it? And like Shakespeare still infiltrates today our our vernacular, the phrases we use. There's so much that comes from Shakespeare that we don't even realize. And yeah, Aristotle was such a brilliant thinker. I'm like, I want all those big minds in one room, and I forget dinner. I want to have like a vacation with them
Yeah.
for at least a week. I would need a week.
That's going to be my next question. It's like not. So it's going to be the upgrade from so when we do our next conversation, it will be a vacation. It won't be a dinner, it'll be a vacation.
It'll be a vacation.
And your names may have changed. But interestingly, as you were talking about that, I was thinking it wouldn't be a dinner, and this wouldn't be a this
A
wouldn't be
retreat.
this, so I'm just thinking. So I was thinking like with AI, you could probably in I don't know years to come, you could probably mimic using AI and have
When
like
they have the holodeck, that's the first thing I'm doing when they invent the holodeck.
really, yeah.
Right?
So you could have obviously it wouldn't be the same, but it'd be like, okay, what would they talk about? You could sort of get ChatGPT or some AI type
Right?
technology to create a dinner with
That would
you.
be so cool.
That'd be amazing. Maybe we need to talk about this.
Yeah, right?
Maybe we need to send an email to Elon Musk. We've got another $1 billion idea.
Yeah. Hey,
Except
he might go for it.
he might go for it. He might. I don't know where he lives. I think he's in Austin, something like that. Maybe he might send two planes to pick us up from
I'm
Spain.
ready. I've got my passport. That's all I need.
Yeah, we'll have to swat up on this idea before we pitch it to him.
Yeah,
Okay, Heather, this has been amazing. I really loved meeting you, and I hope that we can have more conversations. It's really, yeah, it's just really lovely connecting with you, talking with you,
absolutely.
learning from you, being inspired by you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been so great talking to you. And the name of your podcast is perfect, by the way.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And like, same to you, same as yours. And I look forward definitely to having more conversations with you. And yeah, and maybe Elon Musk.
Hey, that'd be fun.
Elon, look out for our email.
Yeah.
Look out for our pitch. It'll be a one-page pitch.
Yeah.
He's got 24 hours to
Before we move on to the next guy.
We'll put the egg time. We'll say we're going to go and approach some. Where if you don't, we'll approach. I don't know who else is there. Mark Zuckerberg or somebody. We'll approach somebody. Okay, thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button. It really does help us grow the channel, which we're keen to do. And if you know anybody that is looking to increase their spark, find their passion, please do share this episode with them, and please do share Heather's details. And your feedback is most welcome. So we're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.